Since I enjoy doing the common tier list, I'm now doing the champion tier list for Summoner Wars 2nd edition. I did change the mic for less background noise, but I think the quality is lower. Let me know. But anyway, I will begin. You'll notice that the common tier list didn't have a C, but I think the champions deserve a C tier. I think some champions are quite weak and only used for desperate time, and so you're probably imagine which those are. But anyway, I will begin. The first one is Colleen Brighton. I don't know how to spell the names. Um, I think it's on the weak side. Uh, it's um, it's still I think it's still functional. It still provides what it needs for vanguards. It's just a champion that really makes your champs your commons your citadel units, and that's important. Harder to kill. The fact that it doesn't work with temple priests is very annoying actually for me. And the stats are quite low for its cost. So, but the fact that it has so much range, it means really can support your team for a long time, and that kind of compensates. I just think not enough. But overall, it's a playable champ. I mean, it's quite weak, or not quite weak, but on the weaker side. And next one is Balna. Balna is I like it a little more, but I have kind of the same problems. I think the stats are kind of low for its cost. To use Citadel Champion, you requires a lot of support. You really need to play the game around her, and she kind of be toyed around. It's not easy to use. Guidance is good ability, but it's not that great. Overall, I think it's again like Colleen functional, but I think she needs a little more, and she doesn't. Uh, uh, Sometimes with Vanguards, uh, you feel like you need to kind of summon a champ, but one champ is fine because they're just okay. And yeah, I'm going to get in the next one. Talking about that, it's Shakov, which yeah, it's one of the first C's. I think Shakov is quite weak. His stats are very bad. His ability don't compensate enough. You need to really play around him, and even when you do, it doesn't really pay off that well. Um, it's very telegraphed. You need to get a lot of magic, and after that, after the first shot, it's very easy to avoid being ranged because you can expose it very easily because it's very easy to kill. So overall, it's just so hard to use, and then the payoff is just meh, which really you shouldn't really be using Shadow almost at any time, but sometimes it's the right time. I occasionally use it, certain matchups, certain dynamics, but yeah, it's for those times, for very extreme scenarios, very still usable. C is not useless gems. C, I want to clarify that C is you really need very extreme conditions, and these champions should be summoned one every several games, and that's what I do with Shaka. Sometimes I do summon it, but you should only do it when situation is just right, and sometimes it's not easy to value, and when you're not sure, maybe it's better to just discard it. So moving on to Targan, which is kind of the opposite of Shaka, which is interesting because he has the same cost, the same life, but he has two abilities which are not as powerful, but start with 4 strength, which is a lot more. I think Targan is actually one of the best champs in the game right now. Its stats are impressive for its cost, and it has two strong abilities. I mean, Farshid is not strong on its own, but when you combine it with a 4 attack, suddenly it's a lot more interesting. And Piercing Frost is very good. It makes your shamans really spectacular units, and really you can support the shamans from a safe place just behind them, and they have a lot of life. So it's Target supporting shamans is really scary. I mean, you can convince me based on that he's an S or she's an S. Sorry. But for now I feel it's an A plus. Very strong, very efficient. Definitely one of the best champs. The next one is Ragnar, which I don't think is that great. some people think it's like essential for Gognak. I think actually he's a very niche role. Its niche role is support fighters. Ragnar plus fighters is very scary. Fighters can go nuts, and I think when you want that, when you really need fighters in the matchups, Ragnar is the best support champ for them. But that's it. That's its role. And other side of that, I don't think it's that impressive. And for that reason, I think it's an A minus. I still like them better than them, which will surprise some people. But yeah, I don't think that it's. I mean, you can still use it outside fighters. Okay, that's why it's not weak. You can still use it. It's just it only shines with fighters. Otherwise, uh, it's okay if that's what if you just need some kind of the stats. Anyway, moving on. Shang actually, I have it somewhere, but yeah, I'm going to talk about Shang. Shang is actually very dull champ, but actually it's very solid. The amount of life you get for its magic is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Um, if you want life, you want Chunk, and that's it. It doesn't have a relevant ability attack. I mean, just its impact is only 3 attack basically. But that amount of life for 5 magic is just off the charts. And that's if you want life, you get life, and because the ratio of life he gets is so good, I do think that Shang preserves a place into solid units. I mean, you're never wrong summoning Shang. It just takes so much effort to kill. So yeah, I like. I mean, I don't like it. I actually don't like the champion, so to speak. This Sunwise, I just think that power-wise is very strong, or just solid. Like I said, the next one actually is going to be Holias, which continues the strong champs in the game. I don't know which one of them is stronger. I think they're both very close. Uh, Obviously, Targan has better stats, but Holia support more units and in a better way. I think they're very close, both very strong champs. You're always they're both game defining, right? When they come into play, the game is a little about what they're doing. They define the gameplay. They have decent stats and very powerful impact in the battlefield. I think they're definitely a plus among the strongest champs in the game. Um, I would say Torgan is a little stronger because I'm more inclined to say Torgan goes up there than Holias. I don't think Holias is any higher than this. So there's that. The next one is Vanessa. Vanessa is very similar to Shang if you want some hard to take champ. Vanessa is the Fangirl's Shang. It has a little less life, but it punishes melee units. And you can agree that Vanessa is better or worse depending on how you see it. I think they're very close. Actually, I like Vanessa a little more because really some units, some factions have real big troubles taking her down. And Shang doesn't have those great situations. And for that, I like Vanessa a little more. But they're very close. I think they're both very solid. They're safe bets. You can summon them, and they're always kind of decent value. Um, the next one is Firedrake, which I consider another solid champion. This is a little lower, more actually because I feel he's more circumstantial. You're never really happy to summon Firedrake. If you can't, you need to do the right situation, right? You need kind of a slow game, just be able to shoot from safe positions, or maybe use protector for fine place. You need the right situations, but you can be extremely good in the right situations. But because it's kind of situational, I'm I think it's on the bottom of the solid units. You can convince me even that it's a little lower, but I think it's kind of that sound top A minus or bottom A plus. It has a little too little life for its cost, but I mean it's reasonable given all the things he does. Firebreath attacking through friendly units is actually very scary. It allows you to do a lot of plays, but when it attacks through other units, also scary. It's a very powerful ability with powerful attack, and Protector adds up definitely. So there is my opinion on Fire Drake. The next one is Gul'daz, and I think no surprise here, Gul'daz is another of our C tier champs. Um, I liked that. I used to like it a little more like here, but it's been dropping from there or here, and really every time I use it, I kind of regret it. It's just the problem with Gul'daz is, I mean, his stats are obviously very low. His ability is powerful. The problem is your opponent can very easily play around it. If some people say you can damage yourself, and sure, but the problem is you're wasting resources and time when you attack yourself, and then you're kind of losing kind of value, and your opponent can just not attack it when you want to deal with it and just shoot attacks, do nothing, and when it does attack it, well, after that it's very easy to play around. It's just very hard to use value, to get value from Gul'daz. It requires very extremes. I sometimes use it, but it's very marginal value, and it maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not sure yet, but yeah, it's not really a good champ. Dragons, I think maybe it will surprise some people where I'm going to place it, and that's because it's one of the best champs, our most usable champs in Fallen Kingdom, but the fact is Fallen Kingdom has very weak champs, and that's so I think it's actually a marginal value champ. Again, very costly for its stats, and its ability is really weak. And when you combine all that, you have a very marginal champ. The good thing is that it's very versatile. I mean, it's it's never terrible, unlike other champs. It's never really good. It has some shiny moments where you really sacrificing the unit is a positive, but overall, I don't think I like the value it provides. So yeah, it's a B. Um, the next one is Eludwal, which actually got up in stock for me. I used to value him around here, but now I changed my mind, and the reason is uh, if you a six attack can be very scary if you can protect it. It's not like diving with Eludwal is generally not a great idea. But if you can protect it with skeleton archers, with good flanking, just attacking good positions, six attack can really do a lot of damage to gates, to champs, and I mean killing 5 life units is great. So when you think of that, yes, it's very expensive. When you add the cost plus the cost of sacrificing, but sometimes the sacrificing can be a positive with warriors and cultists and whatnot, and Porsche. I'm sorry, and sacrificial pyre. So yeah, it's been rising up as stock. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few weeks I just move it above Dragos. Um, so, well, I'm saying a lot of positive things. It's still in B, but because it's still very expensive. I mean, it requires a lot of work. It's very expensive, and it's very easy to lose the game because he just get one shot after all the cost. And yeah, it's very hard to get value from, but still, it's raising Amsterdam. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised here. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually move it here. I'm more than that. I don't think it's gonna happen, but yeah, that's my opinion of Eludwal. Next one is the Eater, and no surprise here, another C weak unit. I think it's actually one of the worst champs. Yeah, I don't know what to say. His stats are not that great, and still has a very negative, extremely negative ability. I mean, it's just sometimes the game goblins use it because you need a big body, you need to make use of magic, you need a big attack, you can really pull things off, and the Eater kind of works. I mean, very marginal work, but you can play it. I sometimes play it, but most of the time it's just easier to just discard it. That's yeah, it's very stats are very poor, and for scales, and even have a negative ability. I don't know what else to say. Smack actually will surprise maybe some people, but I'm liking. I used to put in the past. I used to rank Smith maybe around here, but now I moved it around here, and it's going down. It's going down in value. The reason is the key with Smith is that you can ignore it. Really, I mean, if your opponent is spending one magic per attack, then like, okay, yeah, taking two extra attacks, but do I really care? The answer is often you don't really. So yeah, I mean it's going down in value. I don't think it's going to reach here, but it might. I think even to be annoying, it's very easy to kill. Yeah, you know, it's just a very marginal champ for me right now. I'm going to put it. I'm just going to put it here. I still use it. I mean, you still have to use it with Snakes. Snakes has a lot of marginal stuff, and you need to use it somewhere. I'm just um, definitely you will play it almost every game, but just because Sneak is kind of forced his hand into using it more than the great value it provides, and that's comparing with what I think is the best, easily the best jump of Sneaks, which I really like, which is actually I think is a solid unit. It's a solid champ. Um, it might not seem so when you consider the cost, the drawback, and everything, but the fact that you can just drop it very easily without effort, you can just have it in the hand, unlike other champs, you just can hand in hand and just drop it and start paying, like, that's very valuable. It's very easy to play, so to speak, and its combination with snakes can be extremely powerful. I'm never sad with Larv, or almost never sad. I think it's very solid champ, and I don't expect more from it. You can convince me it's a little weaker than that, but yeah, I really like Larv. My favorite is Cape Goblin champs by far. And the next one is Gul'dun, which is actually, I think it's a very, I mean, you can, it's a very solid champ, one of the better A champs. You can convince me it's an A plus. And yeah, it's very scary. I mean, yes, it's also very poor, but his ability is extremely strong, especially because he can trigger attacking enemy an enemy card, which means a gate, which is that's very scary. It needs protection, definitely. It needs really careful placement, but it's if it's not dealt with, it just can win games alone. It just has such much impact. The only reason it's not an A plus for me is that for its cost, it can be very easy to kill, and sometimes lose games because of that. I've seen games lost because someone's think Gul'dun is kind of safe, but actually against one shot, and then you lose the game because you spent a lot of resources in a single card that didn't do that much. But you can convince me easily that's an A plus. I mean, yeah, you can convince me, but I'm not. I mean, I think it's still at the top of the A. So yeah, again, like I say, all the time this is very close, like bottom A plus. This it's not like a big champ, right? It's a linear progressive things. So bottom of A plus, top of A. That's kind of where I put it. Next one is Kalal, which hasn't changed him for me. Surprisingly, this gem that I moved more. I don't have it. I've had it here. I've had it here. I've had it here. It's. I don't know. I don't know. The problem with Kalal is kind of like I've said with other champs. It's a champ that sometimes you say, "Wow, it's so expensive, so hard to get value," and sometimes there are some games where she just wins the game. She just carries the game alone, and she's like, I played against Lana and it's impossible to do anything against her. Greater push with her big attack is just you can kill her. She just provides too much value. It seems it takes over the game. And yeah, in those situations it feels like this and I like this, and then sometimes just so bah, so meh. So overall, I will say it's a solid unit. I mean, it just has had variance in duality, but yeah, I think that's she wins the games enough that she's a solid unit. I'm going to put her there. Next one is Warark, and I know some people strongly disagree, but you know my opinion of Warark. He's really bad. I mean, I almost never use it. I just don't like it. It's very marginal. Sometimes he really Some people see that sometimes it seems unfair what he does, and it kind of does, but it requires so many things to go for him. I just prefer to avoid that effort and just play something else. Just um yeah, just there are better uses for magic than Warwick. Basically, he has to look at those stats for his cards. It's just so bad, and his ability is powerful. One thing about Warwick is that it's a T, because what it does in Takulu, and I don't know how it's going to fit in other decks, but I can see this ability to be extremely brutal in like imagine something like Cave Goblins, right? It's not like wow, okay, that's scary. Uh, but so far, he can only be playing on Takulu, and there it's very. Bah, I don't like it. So next one, it's not. What did I miss? I missed something, Chloe. Oh, it seems I miss. Yeah, my Kandaru. Um, very efficient champ. The amount of life it has for its cost is very hard to take down, and still provide a lot of value. You can boost her knowing that she will probably survive two swift shot, at least one more. And with I am trying to value this combo with Chant of Power, but yeah, that's a good combo. It's just it's just a bag of stats, but it's a very efficient bag of stats. You can even convince me that it goes there, but for now I will say it's an A plus. Yeah, there's not much to say. It's just the numbers are too good. Going to move on. Mitikiru is, as everybody knows, the king of the savannah, not the jungle. It's just look at the stats for the cause. It just makes no sense. Just if he had no ability, then okay, but he has not one but two abilities that work for different situations: combat, defense, support, whatever you want. Mitikiru does. Were amazing stats. He does everything. I think it's the best champ. No, I mean I think nobody doubts that. At this point, it's just amazing. It's always useful. It's always great. It's always. I mean, sometimes it's not super amazing, but sometimes it is. It just does it all. So yeah, I think it stands above the rest, no doubt. Meeting Mumbai. Uh, I think it's around here. Some people, I mean, you can convince me. It goes actually. I'm actually going to move here. I'm going to be harsh. And the reason is, every time I summon it, I just regret it. I mean, in Theorycraft, he just. I mean, you can get him to 6 attack, and 6 attack plus 11 life is a lot. Like, but then you realize that the opponent can't play around, which is what happens. Only provide bad targets, and then you spend 8 magic plus a lot of boosts, and it's not worth it. It's just not worth the effort. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just not worth the effort. I still sometimes in some matchups like Polar Dwarfs where you need high attack, I kind of use it. I think it's okay to use it there, but that's the point, right? In the best, you give him the dream scenario and he's just okay. And I think that's the definition of a C unit. If a unit in his dream scenario is just okay, it's a C unit. So that's the situation of Midi Mumbai. Let's move the next to the Charmon. Charmon, I'm doubting between A and bottom A plus. Yeah, as I was said, it's a very fine line. You can convince me either case. I'm going to put solid unit just because it's cheap and sometimes win games. Really, just it's one of those champs that sometimes is I lost because Charmant. Its ability can be extremely powerful, especially with parapets that protect it, and still, if you try to get to him, you start to get one damage. It's just it starts low, but sometimes just win the games. Sometimes it's like this is useless, but sometimes win games. And I think that's as you just saw, that's where I am putting solid units. Um, so moving on, Olag, no Olag, give me Olag. Okay, Olag is on the weaker side for sure. Uh, on the weaker side. Hola is overall a weak champ for sure, and you can convince me to go there. The problem is sometimes Olag you can drop it early game, like turn 2 or 3, and then start spamming ice golems and parapets, and you realize it's very hard to deal with the amount of life it provides. Like ice golem with 6 life are scary. You can just start to frost exam them. So and you may think if you think that how it's not a solid unit, and the reason is it's very very it pigeonholes into certain strategy. It's just it needs to come early on. It needs a lot of things to go for well for him, and yeah, I don't think when so many things have to go well for him to shine, to find a solid unit to me. Um, and when the payoff is not that spectacular, like say Kalal or Sharman. But sometimes it's not for a B because sometimes it's just very powerful, and that's why I put it on 8 minutes. And finally, Nadiana, I think this one is going to be very controversial because some people really love her. I don't, but I think it's fine. I think it's not a solid unit. It's kind of weaker, but still, I think that's a good placement for her. Again, you need a lot of support, but I agree when you support her, she can be very scary. Never just and it's a lot of support, a lot of useless magic spend on. Or maybe you have a lot of surviving gates, but sometimes you see people just having to just spend gates for no reason. I don't know, it's just and then when you summon her, the first strike kind of that damage, but then the opponent can just play around. I don't know. I mean, definitely it's better than Shakov, which is kind of does the same, but yes, it's just better. But yeah, I'm not in love with Nadiana, and despite I do very right now, Polar Dog is my best performing faction. I barely summon her. I like Charmon, which is, or even Olag. I summon more Olag than Nadiana, but uh, I know. I see other people play Polar Dwarf with very Nadiana based game, and I recognize that she kind of gets scary. So yeah, I think it's just she works, but I still think she's kind of weak. She requires too much support. She's kind of easy to kill and doesn't do enough when fully support to be a solid unit, but still pretty good. So that's my tier list for Champions and Summer Wars 2nd edition. If I have to say something else is that you may notice I don't like the commons. This is not very evenly spread. A lot of bottom kind of quite weak champs that I think are extremely marginal. Um, there are many solid units, but then if you have to take something about this, is that I think the champions right now are a little on the weak side compared with the commons. Like more champs, some champs are very good, some are very kind of OP, but overall the champs really need some help. Yeah, if there is a light at the end of the tunnel, is that if you notice the Fengelfs and 200 Arc champs, they're all on the kind of, you can put it here as I said, on the solid unit plus, which means that there is more awareness to make those future champs be more aligned there, but master set champs leave a little to be desired. Many of them are just very hard to play, some are just very marginal use. And that's why I think there is another common. There is a lot of common use in 2nd edition because the champs are not. Many of them are not giving enough value to just be worth the effort of saving the magic and risking losing the game for a big combo that one shots it. There are a few champs that still are obviously here. Breakers with Kalal and Gul'dun. And the champs of Sarah and Polar Dwarf are kind of okay. But when I'm playing, I'm using champs in Fallen Kingdom less and less because I think it's more efficient to just use Under the Waters I still use one champ. Sometimes I'm in two, but the chance I keep to one when it's one of these Dragos and Eludwal because I think that they are not great, and you should summon them because you sometimes that's what you need. That's what you need what they provide, but they can't. They struggle to compete with the efficient commons. Um, and I hope that change. I hope that we see more of the power level we saw in Grognak and anything else. And maybe in Brognan actually, but on the other side, I think maybe we should aim more for things like Holias and Targon. For what we saw, they are not breaking the game. They're strong, but nobody feels like they're just too overbearing like Summer Wars 1 champs. So maybe this is not the future of the game should not aim for NA solid units, but for NA plus power. I mean, it's very close, right? But I'm just saying that, yeah, I'm not very happy with what I see with champs on the master set, and I hope the future expansions uh, go a different path. And that's everything I have to say with the champs of Summer World Second Edition right now.